Welcome to a beautiful Sicily for stage one of the Giro di Sicilia. We started in Marsala and have our finish in Agrigento. And, well, if you're a little bit older, you might remember that in 1994, the World Championships took place here on Sicily with a world title for Luc Leblanc and for Monique Valin-Valvik from Norway. But first, that look back at the edition of 2022 of the Giro di Sicilia with an exciting first stage and a really, really great win by Matteo Malucelli, who just lost his team in Rosvello and was riding for the national team of Italy. In the end, he did get himself a new contract and he's now part of the Bingoal team. The second stage was a win for Damiano Caruso, the man from Sicily. And then our third stage from Real Monte to Piazza Armerina. Very exciting finale there with a very windy stage. And this young man, Fran Mihajlovic, his first professional win. What an emotional moment there for the young man who's now part of the Bahrain victorious team. And then to the mighty Etna, the volcano on Sicily, for the final stage of the four-day stage race. And we were going to the town, the edge of that side of Etna, Piano Provenzana, and a fantastic win by Damiano Caruso, just ahead of Louis Meintjes. And Caruso, with his family there, was also the overall winner of the Giro di Sicilia, ahead of Jefferson Alexander Cepeda and Louis Meintjes. Also in the top five, Vincenzo Nibali and Kenny Elizonde. Nibali, he was at the start this morning. Of course, not an active rider anymore, but of course, he visited his home race. We start in Marsala, which is the most western tip of the island, and then basically follow the coastline in an easterly direction. No time for wine, the well-known Marsala wine, but we do have a climb in Partana, which is a 3.8 kilometer climb, 4.1% average. And then we kind of move through an area without any settlements alongside the coast to Agrigento, which in ancient times was actually the third largest city in the Greek Empire. And there we have a finale, which is 3.8 kilometers long, 5.3% average, but the steepest part of our finish climb is actually 9%. It is the same finale as we had in the 2020 Giro d'Italia, and that stage was won by Diego Ulissi ahead of Peter Sagan. We do have Diego Ulissi on the start line, as we have some lovely images here from Marsala. And if you do some cooking, Marsala is of course a very well-known wine to cook with, to use in sauces, but also if you leave it a little bit longer, up until 20 years sometimes even, it gets sweeter, it gets more intense, and it's a really, really lovely wine to have with some cheese. For example, Gorgonzola cheeses or Parmesan really do well with Marsala wines. And just like sherry or ports, it's actually a melange, a mixture of certain vintage, so you don't have a specific year. You do have in port, but you don't have in sherry. And that is what this town is known for. But look at the fantastic old architecture here on Sicily, one of the autonomous regions of Italy, 5 in total, one other of course being the other island of Sardinia. Check in this morning with a lot of teams that we are not completely familiar with, but we will get to know them in the upcoming 4 days. A lot of the Italian continental teams here that traditionally are a breeding ground for new and young talent, but jerseys that we have to get familiar with in the upcoming days. For example, the team here from Emilia-Romagna, where the 2020 World Championships were in Imola. This is a team that we do know, the human-powered health team with Paul Double on the start line. Also Chet Haga is there, and Pierre-André Coté, the only national champion on the start line. And this is the man with number 1, Damiano Caruso. We also have the South African champion. I missed him on the start line, but he is there for Q36.5, Travis Stettman. Sorry for that, Travis.
Do Giro di Sicilia now?
Like for me, it's still way back actually to the good shape because I crashed in Algarve, and yeah, like I tried to find the good legs again for to prepare Romandy.
In today's stage, many people think Diego Ulissi is unbeatable. Do you have a way to beat him?
We'll see. I mean, I hope so. I hope we have the right answer to him, but we'll see. Yeah.
Elia, what is the idea behind racing the Giro di Sicilia with the Italian national track team?
I know we are in really full Olympic qualification, so we start well with Europeans, not super good in the first 2 World Cup, and now we are approaching the next World Cup, and we want to be on the top to put point in the pocket and be sure to go to the Olympics before thinking to prepare the Olympics next year. So a few days on the road is good also for the track rider to build the shape, and for me for sure it's good to have some more chance to try to win a stage in this 2023.
Are you a sprinter for this kind of stage today?
Yeah, I'd say I've go as far as saying I'm a puncher more than a sprinter. So yeah, it's a climb that really suits me. And also having seen the Giro stage in 2020 where they finished up the same climb and Ulissi won, I think it could be a stage that suits me. So yeah, we'll see how far I can get.
Qual è la tattica?
Sì, la condizione è buona, sto bene.
I feel good.
Ma la tattica vediamo, dai, come va la tappa, cercheremo di essere tra I protagonisti e di approcciare la salita finale in buona posizione e speriamo di avere le gambe per provare a giocarsi la vittoria.
In a good position, I hope I have the legs to pull it off.
First time, I'm really happy. I feel like a kid, so enjoy every day, ride the bike, enjoy with my teammates, and that's it. The results will come, and I just gonna ride and enjoy the bike.
Yeah, that was Alvaro Hodge, and we'll talk a little bit more about him later because his story is one of hardship but also of inspiration. Also, we saw Sebastian Reichenbach, didn't have any graphics, but Reichenbach was there for the Tour de Pro Cycling, and Elia Viviani for the Italian national team, interviewed there by Jean-François Quinet. We could clearly see him because the riders did not take off their glasses. Rule number 1 for every press officer: take off the glasses. Well, blue skies, it's about 18 degrees Celsius, 66 Fahrenheit, and the first attacks straight from the gun by Federico Di Mauro of the D'Amico UM Tools team. But spoiler alert, he didn't make it into today's breakaway, so it was not the first attempt that was successful. But we did end up with a slightly larger group of 7 riders. Very recognisable there is Sambrandt, the rider of Novo Nordisk. And more attacks happening there with Filippo Tagliani. We have a lovely tailwind today, and the wind is gaining in speed as well. There's even a weather warning for that today, and it's a northwestern wind, and since we're racing in a southeasterly direction, the riders will be home pretty fast. This is the first climb of the day, and there we ended up with our breakaway of 7 with Michael Belleri, Sebastian Schoenberger, Roland Thalmann and Umberto Poli. Stage 1 of the Giro di Sicilia. We started in Marsala, and 159 kilometers further down the road we end up in Agrigento. This is our breakaway of the day. We have Michael Belleri with number 32 of the Biesi Carrera squad. They don't have any jeans bibs on, but of course the iconic brand from the past. We have Sebastian Schoenberger leading this group of the human-powered health team, we have Niccolò Galli, the 21-year-old there. At the end of this group, from the Italian national team, Nicolas Melesi is the youngest of the group. He's just 18 years of age, number 164. Uberto Poli of Team Novo Nordisk, there he is with 196 and a rather glorious mullet as well. Matteo Montefiore is part of the team from Emilia-Romagna with 204, and the last man in the breakaway racing for the Tudor team, currently at the lead of this group, is Roland Thalmann. Those are the 7 riders in the breakaway, and look at that, we only have 47.5 kilometers to go. My name is Jose Bain, with me is Brian Smith. Brian, the riders will be home pretty soon with that northwestern wind, about wind force 4 today.
Yeah, they'll be thankful of that. It could have been in the opposite direction, which would have slowed them down a lot. I've been here a couple of times with the Giro d'Italia. This part of the world, you have to kind of really watch crosswinds. I can remember a stage split up by Quick Step, 15 kilometres to go. Gaviria won that stage, and it split the peloton completely. So there's a couple of things I remember about Sicily. That is the wind, but also the climbs. It's not easy at all. Heavy roads, and we have to mention Mount Etna, which will feature later on in this race, and always features in this race. But every time we come here for the Giro d'Italia, it also features there as well.
Yeah, we're going to do it from another side than we did last year, but that is for stage 4. On Friday, when we're going to Mount Etna, Due Monti. We had a lot of activity at the front of the peloton today by Astana, Kazakhstan, one of the 5 World Tour teams at the start. They're here with Mark Cavendish, but if we look at today's profile, Brian, this might not be a day for Mark Cavendish.
What makes you think that?
Well, I'm looking at gradients, I'm looking at his specialties. There's more to gain tomorrow, and maybe even Thursday.
Yeah, Astana and the Turquoise were the team that came up to the front pretty early on, wanted to control the breakaway, and I think they have got possibilities, or they think they have possibilities as well. Not Mark Cavendish, as you said, but too difficult a stage finish, but definitely Lusenko. Lusenko's, he never finished the Tirreno Adriatico, but as we know from last year, that he started his year last year with his first race and won his first race, and he was head and shoulders above everybody else. So I think he's one rider that knows where he is and knows how to train, and if they're riding for him, then he does stand a good chance. I remember watching that stage of the Giro d'Italia that Alesi won when Honoré was up there and Sagan, and it was a really, really difficult stage, but it only kind of happened in the last kind of couple of kilometres, and I'm expecting that. We just heard from Alesi as well. His form is good, maybe not brilliant, maybe not as good as he was in the Giro d'Italia. I don't think he's a nailed-on winner of today. I think there are another few riders roundabouts, but they have put a rider towards the front, UAE Team Emirates, to try and control things. If they were that confident, they would have did what Astana did today. But he is one of the favourites, but I don't think he's the entirely 100% favourite for today.
We have, in terms of World Tour teams, Bahrain Victorious, of course, racing with Damiano Caruso. Last year, he raced with the national team, but of course he asked his team to return to defend his title. Only 5 riders on the start list for Bahrain Victorious. It's a very, very busy time of the season, and resources are stretched. Not only riders, but also team buses, personnel, everything, to make sure that everybody can race. And then on top of that, you have a lot of injuries, and they came out of Roubaix with quite a few injuries at the Bahrain Victorious team.
Yeah, there was a lot of crashes. Just looking at Fred Wright coming on to Arnberg Forest, that was horrendous.
That was terrible.
Yeah, I saw that yesterday. How he walked away from that, I don't know, because these riders are tough these days. But you're right with the logistics. It's not easy to get here.
Exactly.
Normally, when you do maybe kind of Giro d'Italia and it comes here, you have to really kind of split your personnel and split, the buses and trucks that come here, because it's not always easy. So again, for these riders, I think that will be some teams will be here with everything, but not all of them. And we're talking about a lot of teams in this race, Josie, that I haven't commentated on, so there'll be a lot of new riders, and I always like that. A lot of the World Tour races, you get into the rhythm, the same riders, and I think these races are a little bit more interesting and exciting sometimes, because you never kind of know what's going to happen. Remember, watching this race last year, I think you were with Maggie doing the race. I did the year before with when Nibali won it, and that was such an emotional finish to that race that year. Of course, Nibali comes from this area of Italy, Sicily, but I watched it, and I think there's one rider in particular who's here now, Paul Double.
He really stood out.
Human Powered Health. He stood out. He stood out in a few other races and things like that, and really good to see that he is here and riding for a second division team, and rightly so, because his performances last year merited it. I know he had the potential of maybe going World Tour, but sometimes it's not all about going World Tour level when you're a kind of developing rider. You want to be given your own opportunity sometimes, and I know this. I've been involved with a second division team, and I've asked these questions of riders like Steve Cummings and Edward Bosenhagen and these sort of riders, why they should drop down. It's about their opportunity, and I think it's second division teams, and we'll see it here, that a lot of these teams will be given their own opportunities, and sometimes at World Tour level you do not get those opportunities.
Well, this is the waste zone where everybody can just throw away their wrappers, and everybody's doing so quite freely. Yeah, last year one of the best wins that I commentated last year was actually that young man, Fran Mihajlovic, with his first professional win in rather spectacular fashion. He was part of the Friuli team. They're here as well. They're a feeder team for Bahrain Victorious. He moved on to the big team, Fran Mihajlovic. But that was a great win, and that's why I love these smaller races so much. We saw Michele Scartesini at the team car with national coach there. One of the guys from the track. A lot of the riders actually on the Italian national team are track racers, like Elia Viviani, but also our man in the breakaway, Nicolo Galli. And yeah, they, just like Viviani said, Brian, they're in full preparation for the Olympic season. There've been a few World Cups already in Jakarta and in Cairo. Hamilton, Canada is coming up, I think, and that is so important for the Olympic cycle to get your points. Glasgow is, of course, a very important moment for them as well, and they race on the road. But Viviani already said quite briefly that it's important for track riders to do some road racing, but why is it so important for them?
Well, it's a good base, isn't it? We know a lot of riders come from track racing into road racing, and some of them stay. Viviani being one of them. But many years ago, we used to have the kind of Russians and East Germans, and especially at the start of the year, the likes of Ekimov and these riders used to ride a lot of the races in North France, and they were hard stage races. It was all in preparation for the track event still to come. So what they're looking at is building power. And I know that many of these track riders, and we've got many climbs here, are possibly thinking, why are they sending me to this race because of the amount of climbs being a track rider. But what it does, it develops you, it develops that kind of conditioning, that strength and things like that. And then once you've got that kind of base core of strength, then you can go into your track intervals, your speed and things like that. So a lot of it is like any sport. You build up slowly. It's the same with the start of the year. You build up your miles. Once you get your miles, when you're getting closer to racing, then you start to do your kind of interval stuff and short, sharper stuff. And you just have to remind yourself every kind of now and again about your base miles. But a lot of this is just building that strength, that endurance, which a lot of these track riders need.
Most definitely, but the breakaway is just not given that much time. The maximum gap was about 2.5 minutes for these 7 riders. Most of them are Italian, but we have 1 Austrian and 1 Swiss rider in that group of 7 as well. But look at the speed there in the peloton. They're they're in a hurry to get to dinner, I think, or maybe late lunch. At this time might be very early for dinner.
Well, they're averaging just a touch under 45 kilometres an hour. I know it's not the most testing of our roads, but it does go up and down. So it just goes to show you, maybe they're not in a hurry, but the breakaway is strong enough today to make the peloton push this hard.
.39 kilometres to go. Average speed just shy of 45 kilometres an hour, so that's about 30 miles an hour. Temperature today, if we're just recalculating metric and Fahrenheit, it's about 66 Fahrenheit for those of you watching in America, and 18 degrees Celsius. We have a northwestern wind, meaning that the riders have a pretty good tailwind going to Agrigento. And if you're a slightly older viewer like me, you do know that in 1994 we had the World Championships here on Sicily with a world title for Luc Leblanc and Monica Valin Volvik, the Norwegian rider. Chris Boardman won the time trial World Championships, and Karen Kurek did that in the women's race. And I was a fan of Luc Leblanc, and I just can't remember why, Brian, because he was not a superstar or something like that. He was not an outgoing, bubbly personality, but I was a little bit of a fan back in the days of Luc Leblanc. But for the love of it, I just can't remember why.
Well, he's one of the top French riders. I used to race with him. He's French champion at the time, and I can remember the World Championships he won. That was particularly hard. I was going to go that year to help Max Chiandri, and Max decided that he wasn't going to go. Maybe he thought he didn't have the form. Maybe he thought it maybe was a little bit too hard and decided not to go. But I can remember, and that's when the World Championships were in August, when it was like 40 degrees. Very, very difficult conditions. But Luc Leblanc was, a big French hope. Maybe that's a reminder. It may be a little bit like a kind of Bardet or a David Gaudu and that type of rider. And that's why you can remember him, because he was always up there in a lot of these kind of stage races. But I'm just looking at the front of the peloton here. I was trying to work out what team it is. The Sofer Savini do OMZ team are on the front, and you can look at them. We're looking at the breakaway for the moment, but they're all in different coloured bikes. They're a continental third division team, just a small team, and it takes guts in this type of race with World Tour teams to come to the front and start to ride. And start to ride not just with one rider, but they had about 3 or 4 riders up towards the front, controlling the front of the peloton with the likes of Astana and UE Team Emirates. Most teams would have sat back and thought, well, those 2 teams are riding, why should we? But they want to get in the mix, they want to learn. The best way of learning is getting involved. Whether they get anything from today, at least we're talking about them, we're mentioning them, and they're not anonymous, just sitting in the peloton.
Yeah, they have a very international team here with a rider from Greek, riders from Italy, Mexico, Japan, the United States with Conor Schunk, and Romania with Minea Harasim, a young guy from Romania. So very international lineup there for the Safine Due Sofer team. Well, the road is rising. We had one Gran Premio Montagna that was all the way back at 100 kilometers from the finish line. It was Belleri, actually, the man there in white, picking up those 5 points. But since we also have a King of the Mountain sprint at the finish line, these points won't really help him today, because it's also 5 points for the winner of the stage, and then the decision in the mountain classification will be the general classification. So, but he can try again tomorrow. It's a nice base to start again. But on Friday we have free climbs of the superior category, 20 points each. So it's a little bit unevenly balanced. Our breakaway, as we can actually see the wind blowing there, Brian, the breakaway is falling apart. We have Tallman, Schoenberger and Michael Belleri in the lead right now.
Yeah, Belleri's already showed, like you mentioned there, in the first King of the Mountains, taking the maximum points. I know the other 2 riders, Talman riding for Tudor. Talman, Swiss rider. He's ridden like Tour de Suisse and these type of races with the likes of the Swiss setup, but also Schoenberger, the Austrian, very strong rider. I think it was B&B Hotels he rode for in the past, but now got himself a contract with Human Powered Health in the orange there, and he's always a rider that in these type of races gets himself in breakaways, shows that he's got some good form, doesn't mind kind of lumps and bumps, so really no surprise. We're starting to see, in this stage, it's only just under 100 miles, 159 kilometres, that the kind of cream is coming to the top, purely because these are the strongest riders that were in that original breakaway, and they've been pressed because the gap has come to close to 1 minute. So just up this drag, just pressing on a little bit. Some of the weaker riders that have got themselves there in the first place are now starting to struggle a little bit, and we've only got 3 riders left at the front now.
There is an intermediate sprint coming up in Montalegro. That is in about 4 kilometres for our breakaway, as there's some refreshments going on at the front of the peloton for, I think it's Boaro, isn't it? Yeah, it was Manuele Boaro. UAE come to the front. There he is, Alvaro Hodge. His story is a pretty harrowing one. He had an accident in December 21, has been out of competition for 15 months, and his leg was so badly damaged that the doctors even doubted that he could walk again, let alone ride a bike. But there he is, Alvaro Hodge, back in the peloton. Just ahead of Mark Cavendish there. I think it's an absolute splendid national champions jersey that Astana made for Cavendish. About the story of Alvaro Hodge, that accident was really, really bad. He needed 12 operations to fully recover after that crash in December 2021, and even suffered an infection during his recovery that left him unable to eat independently. But he battled on, was back on the bike a year after his crash, trained a lot, of course, in his native Colombia. And this is his first race back. And he said before the start, Brian, he feels like a kid on his first school day. I think if you go through a recovery like that, being part of a professional bike race again is the biggest victory he will ever achieve. Yeah,
he's unlucky, and then lucky to be back racing. When you have those sort of injuries and things like that, you think it's all over and career ending. And you heard him in his interview at the start that he's just happy to be on his bike, and we're happy to see him, because I was kind of wondering where he went, because he was such a kind of talented rider. I can remember him, when he first hit the scene, how well he was riding with a quick step. I hope he comes back, because he hasn't, as you've already mentioned, he hasn't had the easiest, couple of years.
And of course, he has some Scottish roots as well, Brian.
Of course he has.
Of course, only the best people have Scottish roots.
Well, his name is it looks like Hodeg, and when he first broke onto the scene, most commentators were saying Hodeg, and it comes from just writing his name down wrongly. When he
not himself, his dad.
Yeah, when he went when he went out to Colombia from Scotland, and it's actually Hodge they call him, but it looks like Hodeg.
Yeah, well, we set that straight now. The 3 leaders, Belleri, Schoenberger and Talman, are making their way to the intermediate sprint. We've got 3, 2 and 1 second there, as well as 5, 3, 2 and 1 points for the points jersey. 4 jerseys in this race, of course: a leader's jersey, a King of the Mountains, a points, and a young rider's jersey. And the cut-off date here is January 98, so 25 years and younger. That's quite a generous young rider classification, especially since we have so many young riders at the start here. A lot of these teams are also in the running to race the Giro d'Italia under 23 later this season. Everybody anxiously awaiting the invitations to that race. Well, just in time for the intermediate sprint of our breakaway of 7. We have 3 riders left. Talman, the Swiss rider there of Tudor in black, is going for the sprint. He's going for the seconds and for the points because, of course, that was a near crash there by Belleri, meaning that the points go to Thalmann ahead of Belleri and Schoenberger. What happened there, Brian?
I think there was a slight movement from Thalmann. We'll see it again, hopefully, just a slight, which it caused a reaction. I think it was just a change slip there from Belleri, unfortunately, but I didn't think they were going to ride for it. Okay, there's some points up for grabs. I'm not too sure these riders will be thinking about the seconds more than anything, but in the replay here, you just see a slight... When Thalmann goes here, Belleri reacts. Schoenberger, more of a climber, a puncher rider, but not a sprinter. And he just reacts, and Thalmann just moves slightly to the left-hand side, and it just caused him
it's a derailleur.
Yeah, it caused him to move slightly, not violently. We're seeing it again. He just thought it was the wheel was coming over, just moved, and that movement just caused a bit of a change slip there.
Luckily, they both stayed upright, but the points and the little premium that comes with this intermediate sprint goes to the Swiss rider.
It's the same when you put the pressure on. It's as soon as you stop. We see it all the time. Not all the time. If you can remember, a lot of times in the Tour de France sprint stages, when Mark Cavendish, he just sits up with the amount of power that's going through the bike and the chain. As soon as you sit up, it kind of throws your chain off, and there's many a picture of Mark Cavendish coming across the line with his chain unshipped. So that was just a little bit of an indication there that as soon as you kind of put the power down and then you hesitate, then the chain can slip and bounce off.
Well, luckily it was okay and no one got hurt. Still Astana there at the front of the bunch together with Team UE, one of the two of the 5 World Tour teams. We also have Intermarché Circus 1T here, Jaco Alula, and Bahrain victorious, of course, with our defending champion, Damiano Caruso. Rudy Porter of Team Jaco Alula already abandoned the race after a crash. We don't have any more information about Rudy and whether he is relatively okay, but he's not in the race anymore. The same goes for the man from Colombia, from the Shimano Sidermec team, Jonathan Guatibonza. And also a crash here for Matthias Kopecki, the rider from the Czech Republic, living in the Netherlands, as far as I know, in Leiden. But luckily he's still racing. Young man from the Novo Nordisk team. Team UAE Emirates, they are here with Ulissi, the winner of this... well, not this stage, but when we finished on the same climb in the 2020 Giro. You already said that, well, he might not have the same kind of form that he had in 2020, but it does kind of show what kind of finish today's finale is. In my road book, it says 3.8 kilometers, 5.3%, but it maxes out at 9%, Brian.
Yeah, it does. That's at the bottom. After about a kilometre, it goes to kind of 9%, and the finish isn't that bad. It depends on how they attack this one, but it does sort the kind of punchier riders, and the likes of kind of Lysenko. I'm pretty sure that Ulissi will be there. Albanese, who rides for Oriola, Cametto, Lysenko. We've mentioned Caruso won't be that kind of far away. I think we've already heard from Kiplinger saying that it kind of suits him as well. So there's a few riders, even Green Project, Fiorelli. There's quite a lot of riders that this will suit. And by the looks of things, Astana and UE Team Emirates are the two teams that are trying to control it. Doesn't give them any right to just go and win the stage, because there's a lot of riders and teams in here that are just sitting back and using the advantage of saving the powder dry. But this will be quite an explosive finish, this one.
The Intermarché Circus 1T team, they have 2 cyclocross riders in their roster. Thijs Aerts and Gerben Kuipers, one of the revelations of this cyclocross season, just off the podium actually in the elite category in Hogerheide, while he was still working in a factory at the start of the cyclocross season. He's now a full-time professional rider. They also have Louis Meintjes, the runner-up of last year, Nicolo Bonifacio, also an interesting rider for today. Simone Pitilli and Kobe Goossens, of course, who went off to a rather spectacular start of the season with 2 wins on Mallorca in absolutely horrible weather circumstances back in January.
Well, if he's got any of that form, Kobe Goossens, definitely. Bonifacio will be hoping as well. He doesn't mind a bit of kind of uphill sprint as well. It really depends on how hard they go up this final climb. If they go up it really hard, then obviously there'll be less to finish. But I don't think it'll be as hard as when they rode in the Giro d'Italia up here. So it can opens the door to quite a few riders, and like we were just saying a moment ago that the steepest gradients are right at the bottom.
Our fastest schedule was 43 kilometres an hour according to the road book. That would give us a finish 3:15 Central European time, so Sicilian time. But we're going 2 kilometres an hour faster, actually. So the finish will be shortly after 3 p.m. Super fast stage today, of course, helped by a tailwind, and the wind is picking up towards the end of the race. There's even a weather warning out here on Sicily for especially the higher parts up on the hills and the mountains, that the wind might become dangerous. 1:04 for our 3 leaders. 3 remaining riders of our breakaway of 7. Michael Belleri, the Italian from Brescia, 23 years of age. The 28-year-old Austrian of human-powered health, Sebastian Schönberger. And the oldest of the 3, Roland Thalmann, the Swiss rider for the Tudor Pro Cycling Team. Those are our 3 leaders, and we have Astana and Team UAE Emirates doing most of the work there at the front of the peloton. It has been the case for most of the stage, working for the likes of Ulissi and Lutsenko. Absolutely fantastic images here on this bridge. Of course, this is always a scary part when the wind is picking up, but it is a cross tailwind at the moment. And look at the speed these riders are developing at the moment. 45 kilometers an hour average so far. Just 25 kilometers to go. Gap is down to a minute, but they were never really given a lot of space by the peloton. 166 riders started in this race. 25 teams, 5 World Tour. I just mentioned all 5 of them. 8 pro teams, 11 continental teams, mostly from Italy, from the domestic scene there, and 1 national team, the Italian national team, of course. 3 stage wins last year for them. It was a good week for the Italian national team.
Yeah, when you got the likes of Caruso there, and rightly so, he wants to come back and defend his title, and luckily he's got 4 riders, 4 decent enough good riders to help him out. It's always going to be very difficult with a kind of depleted team. Everybody's allowed 7 here, while Bahrain Victorious have got 5, and the son of one of the kind of main sports directors, Mihailovic, came of kind of age in this race. No real surprise, he's kind of taken that step up into his his father's team. So the interest for me is maybe over the next few days. Everybody's a little bit fresher in the first stage, and we've seen a lot of teams that we don't normally call on our screens here at Eurosport GCN getting in the breakaway. But if you look at the front of the peloton, the 2 pro teams have come towards the front. I wouldn't think that we're going to see too many surprises, but this is a big opportunity to show how well you're riding. And we've mentioned Paul Double. I'm sure that Mihailovic as well. But there's a few riders in here who'll be half thinking, well, if I can get up there on today's stage and maybe get a top 10, maybe get a top 6, then it puts your name in the ring. And you get noticed by a lot of these, World Tour and pro teams as well who are riding in this race.
Yep, and that is, of course, a great window to show your talent. It's on in many countries, of course, including Italy. Eurosport GCN Discovery. We're live in all territories that we have, so it's a great opportunity to show yourself. Lovely bright jerseys there of the General Store Efli Korea team. You can't miss them. And equally bright is the Bingle Wallonie-Bruxelles team with the young British rider Tom Portsmouth. He is normally riding for their development team, but he's racing with the World Tour team, not the World Tour team, the Pro team today here in Sicily. So Astana are taking control, just like Team UAE Emirates. We haven't seen Bahrain Victorious at the front. They do have their Polish rider, Filip Maciejczuk, on the start line. You might remember him from the bowling ball effect in the Tour of Flanders. There's still talk that the UCI might want to do some additional punishment for what he did, basically taking out the entire peloton. There is a crash. That shouldn't have mentioned crashes there. But for now, Maciejczuk is still in the race, and he's not being suspended by the UCI. The Kolpak team here, Kolpak Ballon, with Francesca Della Lunga. One of these teams that's been around for a long, long time, Kolpak Ballon, and also one of these talent factories. But it looks like a rather one-sided crash, actually. We only saw one rider go down. There he goes.
Yeah, that's a reaction. Something was happening in front of him, and, you know, dare I say it, with these disc brakes and things like that now, you just hit them and they stop pretty much. So that's a sore one, but like you say, this is a good team, this Kolpak team. Some nice sponsors on there, and unfortunately for this rider, that's a sore one that he's had. It's just that kind of reaction. But, you know, just getting back to what you're talking about, you know, the UCI really have to look at the whole safety of things, because too many
not just
races,
pick out one rider.
No, too many races that they're using the pavements and various other things, and, you know, I'm not covering a lot of these races, but I was watching a lot of them, and you have to cut that out. You do take a risk when you go down the side of the road, and that was a huge risk that you cannot take. You never know what's, you know, if you hit grass or you hit puddle or anything like that, you never know. You put everything at risk, but that's what these riders are doing. They're risking everything to get to the front at particular points in races, and that risk is risking not just themselves but other riders, and that has to stop. The UCI have to just start coming down and riders not using the roads. If they go off the roads, then, you know, there was a case, and it is against the rules to go onto the pavements. But the trouble about Belgium is what is the pavement, what is the cycle track, and what is the road. That's the problem, and they're going to have to really look at that for everybody's safety. You know, he feels bad for what he did, but there's a huge risk involved with that, and, you know, all these riders have pressure on them to get to the front, and the sports directors are pushing them in what way they can do it. But that was a big risk, and for me, I think he really deserves the punishment, but so do so many others that didn't fall off.
Absolutely good point there. But yeah, apparently that's still pending. Tim Wellens, one of the victims of that crash with a broken collarbone, says that he didn't really blame Maciejczuk for that, and that was a rather mature answer. This is Marco Liossi, the
he didn't
rider
blame,
from
but
Biesse.
I think he has to blame him, because in my book he chose to put himself in that position. But everybody else is doing it exactly the same. That's what we have to stop. Everybody doing that.
And of course, on a road like this, if you want to move to the front, yes, you have to go straight through the wind. But on Flemish roads, there's just no room. And just like you said, Brian, the sports directors will be yelling in your ear because the next climb or the next cobbled sector is coming up, and everybody is like in all states and nervous and anxious, and then these things happen. But he is racing. That was my points with Caruso, Rainer Keplinger, Cameron Scott, and Johan Pryce Peterson, the Danish rider. Back to our breakaway, still 43 seconds there for our riders. 19 kilometres to go. This race is going really, really fast.
And I think it's the speed and the way that the wind is blowing as well that's causing a little bit of concern, because it's coming from the kind of right-hand side, and you can see that UAE Team Emirates are taking control of the race and putting the rest of the race kind of in the gutter, and riders are starting to feel the pinch a little bit, starting to get a bit tired. And when you get in that situation, you want to try and get in the kind of sheltered side, and that's what's causing a few of these crashes. People just kind of risking getting very close to the wheel in front, overlapping, and we're getting this kind of concertina effect. And we often see this when the race starts to, I'm not saying echelons, but kind of squeeze with the wind into the gutter. That's when we start to see some problems and crashes like we're seeing at the moment.
Well, this is the safest place to be at the front, although we almost had a crash in the breakaway of 3. But in general, being in the breakaway is a safe place. And some riders even make that conscious decision to try and be in the break to be a little bit safer. Especially on Saturday in Roubaix, I saw some reactions from riders saying, well, we aimed from the breakaway because it was just less stressful than being in the peloton on the cobbles.
It's one of these situations where I know Matt Heyman won from the breakaway, because I was in that race in the team car with Edvard Boasson-Hagen, who was in that group of 5 that came into the velodrome, and it's one of these things that is safer and you don't have to that surge, and you could clearly see that at the weekend there, Jumbo-Visma were quite intent and riding breakaways down. They didn't want a big breakaway to go, and I think in the past in these type of races it was shown that if you are in the breakaway, it's safer. If you duck and dive enough, you can save a little bit of energy. It's hard to think, a race of that distance that everybody was trying to get riders and strong riders in that breakaway. But here you can clearly see that the wind just pushing the riders over to the right hand side, which is the left hand gutter, and UAE Team Emirates are now taking complete advantage here and keeping their riders all up and safe towards the front, because like you say, the safest place might be the breakaway, but you're not conserving any energy. But by where UAE Team Emirates are riding at the moment, they are nice and relaxed and they are saving a lot of energy. Maybe not the 1 or 2 riders that are riding at the front, but definitely having the whole team there just makes them a little bit more relaxed. It's getting a bit nervy behind, and that's where you don't want to be.
Yeah, Team UAE Team Emirates, I should say, are here with Diego Ulissi, Ivo Oliveira, George Bennett, Finn Fisher-Black, Alvaro Hodge and Rafa Maika. Well, that is a team that could come away with 4 stage wins, that much quality on the team. Today we're looking forward to seeing Ulissi at the front, but we already mentioned Alvaro Hodge. He's doing the job, he's doing the work there at the front for his teammates. 16 kilometers to go. The statistics of our finish climb: 3.7 kilometers, 5.3% average, and it will be here before you know it, because Agrigento is on the horizon, the 3rd biggest city in the ancient Greek Empire, just behind Athens and Syracuse, which is of course also here on Sicily. And that is because when there was just not enough money to be made, or not enough land in Greek, the fathers would say to their sons mostly, just travel west, and west would be Sicily. And that's how we ended up with so many Greek settlements here on this rather magnificent island. 39 seconds only for our 3 leaders. The 23-year-old from Brescia, Michael Belleri, he picked up the points on the first climb, and the points in the seconds at the intermediate sprint went to Roland Thalmann. And then we have one more rider in that break, and that is the 28-year-old Sebastian Schoenberger. He was part of the B&B Hotels team, of course, that ended. We all know that story. And he found a late contract at Human Powered Health. I think it was actually after the demise of the team, but I might be wrong in that. It's interesting to see what Lutsenko can do, Brian. It's a name that we mentioned, that you mentioned before. But, of course, I haven't seen all races that we have had this season. But, to be quite honest, I haven't really seen a lot of Lutsenko.
No, he started the year last year very well. This year, not so. He was up there, I think, in one of the UE finishes.
And Strade.
The UE Tour.
I do remember him being in Strade.
Yeah, so he's not. He didn't finish in Tirreno, and but he's one of these riders that's, and clearly Astana know, because they were one of the first teams that started the ride, that think he's on good enough form to be able to support him in this race, and he is probably their best bet for this, up against some other riders. But I think he knows where he is. He's the type of rider that's, wouldn't ask for his team to ride if he didn't think he was in that type of form. Whether it was a sickness he had in Tirreno and he's come back and he's in good form. But a lot of these riders, come in after being a few weeks off and saying that they don't know where they are. Well, with the training aids that nowadays they've got, power meters and things like that, they know what numbers that they're doing in training, so that should have a reference to where they're at. So I think Lysenko is definitely one of the favourites, and Astana believe that he is one as well. But you've got Elise with the UE Team Emirates riding, and they're the two teams that are riding at the front trying to control. It's always in a tailwind. It's very difficult. Maybe 30 seconds with 13 kilometres to go, Jose. I know there's a climb, but if this was a flat finish, those 31 seconds in a tailwind like today are hard to bring back. But with this climb, yeah, it's not going to be enough. But it just means that the pressure is on the teams behind, because a lot of the teams are kind of sat back and allowed UE Team Emirates to do the final parts. But they have to do the final part. And in a tailwind like this, these final 12.5 kilometres will be over in no time at all.
Yeah, this coast named after the Turks, actually. It was the Saracens, of course, formidable opponents to Richard Lionheart in the Holy Land during one of the Crusades. But that's why it's called della Turchi and not della Saracena. Our breakaway of 3 riders in white, Michael Belleri, in black, Roland Thalmann, and just behind him, in the orangey red colours of Human Powered Health, is the man from Austria, Sebastian Schönberger. There was a breakaway of 7 riders. It kind of broke apart about 25 kilometres ago. In the peloton, we've seen a lot of action from Team Astana and Team UAE, but now also getting to the front are Team Jayco Alula. Rudy Porter, he sadly abandoned, but the winner of Sempre Alfredo, a one-day race that takes place on the same day as Trofeo Binda, a race won by Shirin van Anrooy, Felix Engelhardt, the under-23 European champion, he is an interesting prospect for today's race. They also have Kevin Colleoni, Tsabu Gremai, Jesus David Peña, Blake Quick and Campbell Stewart. Yeah, and this is where we're going. This is the Valley of the Temples, and the big temple of Zeus, that was sadly demolished, but the other one is called Concordia. And like I said, in the 5th century BC, Agrigento was actually one of the biggest cities in the Greek Empire, just behind Athens and Syracuse, also here on Sicily. There's 12 temples for 12 gods, so you get all your bases covered there. And the temples itself were actually only accessible for the priests and the gods. And the normal people, they worshipped and they sacrificed outside of the temples. And the Temple of Zeus, they actually had a sacrificial altar that could contain 100 oxen to sacrifice at the same time. And after that, it would, of course, be a big, giant barbecue to enjoy by all the worshippers. And the temples here, they're made of limestone. And the limestone was actually made to look like marble because, there just wasn't any marble available on Sicily. Okay, enough information. We go into the final 10 kilometers of the stage, another ancient Roman residence, because, of course, after the Greeks came the Romans. And this is a settlement, a villa, actually, from the 1st century AD. And here on Sicily, history is on every corner of the island. Greek history, Roman history, and also ancient geological history, because a part of Sicily is actually a little part of Africa, Brian, that kind of collided hundreds of millions ago when the continents were formed, and just a small part of Africa was left behind here on Sicily. I'll tell you something more about that tomorrow. We go into the final, just 21 seconds for our three leaders. 47 average. That means that we have a finish before 3 o'clock, while the finish was actually expected the fastest time, 3:15. Place your bets, Brian. Who do you think has the biggest shot today?
Oh, good question. I think we've mentioned a couple of riders, Lusenko, Ulisi, and there's another few riders. Albanese has to be in the mix as well, but I think everybody's tipping Ulisi. I think I'll go Lusenko.
That was mine as well. And
you can
that
go
is
the same one. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it's because the finishes that he did really, really well on in the Middle East were those steep finishes, like Kuriyat in the Tour of Oman was also a short, punchy climb, stage 1 there by Jesus Herrada, but he was there and thereabouts. And also on Jebel Jais, he did really, really well in the UAE Tour. Of course, a slightly longer climb than today, but he's been out of racing for over a month after he abandoned Tirreno. He is preparing for a big block of racing in the Ardennes with the Amstel Gold Race on Sunday, and then Flèche and Liège-Bastogne-Liège. But yeah, it could do really, really well. Just like you said, Brian, he's the kind of guy who prepares well in training. But this is all about timing, and we are making our way to the foot of the climb here in Agrigento really, really fast.
Yes, now we're kind of bunching up a little bit. A lot of teams start to get in position. Like we mentioned, the climb, the steepest parts of the climb are at the bottom, so you really don't want to be outside the kind of top 20, 30 riders, and this is where we're seeing a lot of movement now. Noticed one of the UAE Team Emirates riders had finished for the day, just drifting back through the peloton. But, these boys at the front are hanging on. Bellery, Talman and Schoenberger, but, they'll look behind them and see it's all over. But I think the push now is to get good position coming into this climb up to the finish.
Yeah, it's a really, really wide road, but you can actually see one of the riders of the Green Project there running out of road there on the right side of the peloton left on your screen here. Everybody's really trying to get to the front. The boys in green of the Green Project team with Fiorelli, one of the names, of course, that you mentioned, could do well on a finish like this. I'm also curious to see what Kobe Goossens can do when it's proper weather, nice weather. Not proper weather, some people like the cold weather, but when it's a little bit warmer. But look at the speed here. That tailwind today is making this a really, really fast race. 46 kilometers an hour average, and that is 3 kilometers faster than the fastest schedule. We are making our way to Agrigento. This is the same climb we saw in the 2020 Giro d'Italia. That stage was won by Diego Ulisi ahead of Peter Sagan. The three riders will most likely be caught just before the climb, and it's all about positioning right now. We have the Italian national team there. Filippo Fortin, an interesting rider to look out for the Italian national team. The Green Project Bardiani is moving to the front there with Filippo Fiorelli. Tonelli, also an interesting rider. Soccarato, of course, but they mean business. We have Bahrain coming to the front with Caruso, of course, the defending champion. Tudor are coming to the front as well with Sebastian Reichenbach, who could do well on a finish like this. And then it's about positioning. We see Jaco Alula in the blue and white with their European Under-23 champion, Felix Engelhardt. He already won his first pro race this year in Italy, in Sempre Alfredo. That was mid-March, and he could do well on a finish like today. But Sabu Grimay, of course, also interesting rider to look out for. Albanese for Aiolo Cometa. We have Lutsenko in the colours of Astana, and then Ulisi in the colours of Team UAE Emirates. It's a very nervous run into the bunch, but the speed is well over 50k an hour right now. Belleri, he took out his earpiece. He doesn't want to hear from his team director anymore. He's just trying against all odds to stay clear. But yeah, this guy left a good impression today, Brian.
A huge impression. The fact that he's still there with, Talman and Schoenberger, and he's wanted to get that kind of King of the Mountains prize. He already took the climb today. I think whoever wins this stage will be in that lead, courtesy of where they finish in the general classification. But he'll have it on his back tomorrow, because whoever wins the stage, of course, will be leading the race. So, hats off to the young rider Balleri, and we'll see him tomorrow in that King of the Mountains jersey.
We see Human Powered Health getting to the front there with Pierre-André Côté, the Canadian champion, in second position. They're also racing here with Paul Double, Chet Haga, Bart Lemon, Svestat, Bart Singh, and of course Paul Double, the British rider. Off the main road, hopefully everybody stays upright on this really giant roundabout as we go into the centre of Agrigento. We have a slight tailwind on the climb as well. The final 250 metres are flat, but of course it's all about positioning towards that foot of the climb. It's not as wide a road as we have right now, with Paul Double there in the colours of Human Powered Health. I think we have Louis Meintjes coming to the front as well. There is Sabu Gremai with two of his teammates. For Jaco Alula, we have Olisi there in the colours of UAE, and then the riders at the back with Schoenberger there, the man from the breakaway. Late attack there by one of the riders of Eolo Cometa, a team that we of course know from the Giro d'Italia, and in the colours of Italy it's the Zalf team. But for this moment, as we have started our climb, Brian, it's Jaco Alula taking charge.
Yeah, they are. Still very early, 3.4 kilometres, but they have Gourmet in second place there, in good position. I noted that the team of UAE, Team Emirates, have got Ulisse there. That's Mikko Maestri for Eola Cometa, just on the left-hand side in the light blue. Another rider from Jaco Alula coming up there. Caruso's up there in the red for Bahrain Victoria. So a lot of riders from the Green Project there. I really do think that Fiorelli has got a good chance in this final. But, Louis Meintjes on the right-hand side moving up a little bit. But nobody really kind of pushing for the moment.
Might not be explosive enough on a finale like this, Louis Meintjes. But of course, he wants to get off to a good start to go for that general classification. There's one of the temples on the Valley of Temples. 12 temples, 12 gods. But let's look at the racing right now, because it is really heating up. We'll probably get more temple shots after the finale, Brian, to enjoy.
Yeah, definitely, but that's where we're going. Notice that Intermarché Bonifacio up there behind the Jaco Alula riders, so he's another rider that doesn't mind this. It really depends on how fast they go up here. So just in the white with the fluorescent yellow, Bonifacio is there. So nobody really kind of trying to, I think the tempo is high enough to thwart some attacks, so nobody really kind of attacking this yet.
Well, there we have an attack on the right side of the road. This is one, I think this is the Colombian team of Shimano Sidermec, but yeah, you must excuse us. These are unknown teams for us on day one. But this is quite a powerful attack here, as Cavendish is waiting for tomorrow, where he finds a finale that, really suits his strength. And after that third place in Scheldeprijs, I think he should be confident to play a role tomorrow, if everything stays together, of course, for a bunch sprint.
Definitely, I've noticed pretty much all day he's been looking after Lysenko. They were riding up there towards the front, and he's been passing on his experience. So yeah, just bailing out nice and early. He'll ride up this final climb, and he'll be on tune tomorrow.
Green Project chasing our lone leader that we have not been able to identify just yet. We have 3 riders there of the Green Project, 2 of Jaco Alula there with Felix Engelhardt. Olisi is there as well. But the Bianchi team at the front right now. He will be overtaken, he will be caught as we go to the Piazza Vittorio Emanuele. Number 202 is the team from Emilia e Romagna. in the north of Italy, where we had the World Championships, of course, 3 years ago. Very valiant effort there by Emanuele Anzaloni, but the Green Project, they have everything under control. Still a lot of riders in contention with 2 kilometers to go. We have done the steepest bit, just like you said, a kilometer into the climb, but still at this point we are at 6.2, 6.3% average climbing as Kobe Goossens moves to the front as well, together there with Louis Meintjes.
Louis doing a good job here. He's kind of moved up, and he maybe doesn't have the kind of big punch that needed in this sort of finish, prefers the kind of longer climbs, but yeah, a bit of action now from UAE Team Emirates. They have got George Bennett just in front of George Bennett. They've also got Ulisi, the big favourite for the day. Caruso still up there for Bahrain victorious. So, you know, a lot of action now, but it's a case of sitting and waiting for the moment. But UAE Team Emirates in prime place and trying to help Ulisi here in second place.
It levels out at about 600-700 meters from the finish line there. It's only 3%, so it's all about being in position for that final 500 meters. Louis Meintjes is looking good there in fourth position, the South African in the bright colours of Intermarché. But I do wonder, Brian, if he is explosive enough on a finale like this.
Well, Louis, he cannot really kind of wait. You know, he's a fighter, starting to break up at the frontier, and, you know, he'll fight the whole way. You've got to remember that he's thinking more of the bigger picture here of the general classification. And if he can stay with these front riders, so be it. But like you say, when it comes to kind of sprint finish, he'll grind his way to the finish, try and, you know, stay up there and lose as little time as possible. But there are other kind of punchier riders, and it looks as if we could be seeing a kind of small sprint of a group of about 10 riders here.
Well, it's a very impressive finale by Team UAE Emirates. We don't see any sign of Lutsenko, although he might be there in last or second to last place of this group. We do have Albanese, and this is a very interesting attack there. Is this Finn Fisher-Black?
Yeah, it looks like that, and the fact that his teammates just let him go,
yeah,
whether he was riding too hard and they couldn't go with him, but this is a valiant effort now. Albanese looked as if he was there for Iolo Cometto, but yeah, no sign of Lutsenko at all.
It is the man from New Zealand, Finn Fisher-Black. He was setting the pace there at the front, and of course his teammates, they dropped a little bit of a gap there. He's done the steepest part of the climb right now, the young man from New Zealand, of course, the brother of Nee Fisher-Black, the under-23 world champion. He doesn't have a professional win just yet, Brian, and this looks very promising for the 21-year-old.
Yeah, he looks as if he's starting to die a little bit, but so are the riders behind, because it's Louis Meintjes propped on the front. It's 600 metres to the finishing line, but he has to keep this going. A lot of looking around behind, and it looks as if with 500 metres to go, he could be taking his first big victory.
Yeah, it's levelling out here. It's about 3%, and the finale is flat. And he's giving everything that he has in the legs. It's 400 metres left for Finn Fisher-Black, the 21-year-old from New Zealand. He was pacing his team. He was doing the work for Diego Ulisi, but he was mightily strong. His teammates left the gap. He's glancing over his shoulder. This might be his first professional win coming up. It's looking very promising there for Finn Fisher-Black. The finish is in sight. The man from Benenden in New Zealand on his way to his first professional win. And what a fantastic way to do it. He is completely dead on the finish line. There's lactic acid coming from every orifice there, and he can't believe it. He's incredulous about his first professional win, but it is his. Finn Fisher-Black wins stage 1. Well done, young man. And then it looks like Albanese is going for second place, Ulisi, Caruso, and probably Lutsenko there in fifth. But this is absolutely fantastic, Brian. Having this young man from New Zealand, to see him win his first professional bike race in such a spectacular manner as well.
No, it was incredible the way he did it. You know, they were looking after Ulisi, and I think his whole team at one point went, he's just riding so strong, and just let the wheel go. Whether it was planned, I don't think it was planned. I think the shake of the head there from George Bennett, I think, says it all. Pretty much that this was not planned. He just rode so strong that the rest of his team decided, right, let him go. And you know, if he was to die, then Elise could take it up. Elise looks absolutely spent on the right-hand side there. I think he finishes in 3rd place, but
and this is that
the
moment, Brian.
And it was Elise that decided, I can't go with this. He looked around there and thought, I cannot go. And it wasn't a case of, you know, they were riding for Elise, but Elise's legs just went a little bit here, and Josh Bennett was forced into, what do I do now? Do we let him go? I thought we were looking for Elise here. Caruso didn't have the legs. No one else reacted to it, and it was a case of so many UAE Team Emirates here at the front there, they could afford to let him go, and it was always a case of, is he going to die or not? And he never, all the way to the finishing line. And like you say, in the sprint final, Albanese was there just beating Elise. I didn't think Elise was going to have it all his own day. His form didn't show that way, but brilliant finish there from this year young Kiwi rider, Finn Fisher-Black, taking his first victory. Just behind Arnebi, Albanese taking 2nd, Elise 3rd. Looked like Caruso was 4th, and Lusenko in 5th place, who came from pretty much nowhere. Maybe he was out of position, but what a final there. This rider deserved it. Wasn't the plan, but they'll take it.
Yeah, it's one for the team, you know, it stays in the team as well. He gets the leader's jersey, and of course, yes, he won a stage in the New Zealand Cycling Classic 2 years ago. It's a 2.2 race. Officially, we don't count that as a pro win. That's 0.1 and up. Doesn't really matter. It was a fantastic win by Finn Fisher-Black. I can imagine his sister, his older sister, Nee Fisher-Black, being absolutely ecstatic in front of the television. And yeah, this is a great win, great way to get your first win. The look of, like, he looked absolutely incredulous that he didn't expect this either. But that makes it all the sweeter, of course, for this 21-year-old guy from New Zealand. And it's not easy, Brian. And he moved to Europe quite a young age. I think he was 18 when he went to the development team of Jumbo-Visma, actually. Then joining UAE Team Emirates in 2021. And now his first pro win for the team. Finn Fisher-Black ahead of Albanese, Ulissi, Caruso, Lutsenko, Conti, Pesenti, Lennart Teugels, George Bennett and Kobe Goossens in 10th place. 8 seconds already for Finn Fisher-Black, and that means that he has a good chance to keep the jersey, keep the leader's jersey tomorrow as well. And that is, of course, a great way to start the Tour of Sicily for Team Emirates.
Yeah, here we hear from him.
Everyone expected Diego Ulissi to win today, and you get your first pro win. Was this the plan?
Not at all. No, I was also expecting Diego to have a strong finish, and actually all I was meant to do was just pull into the bottom of the climb and go as far as I could. And I just I looked back at one point, and then no one was there, and then the DS on the radio just saying to go, so I just looked down and just kept going, but definitely not the plan. I still in a bit of shock, so yeah.
How far from the finish line did you realize you were going to win?
Not until I saw it, because I could see them like just behind, and I kept looking back, and I was thinking, for sure they're gonna, normally they pick up so much pace in the last kilometer, but I was thinking, if I just do what I can, and it's just everything I had, and then hopefully I can make it. And it was only just 100 meters before the line where I really started to realize I'd got there before them. So, yeah.
So this is your first pro win. How important is it?
Yeah, it's really, really important for me. The last year has been so hard. I broke my leg at the beginning of last year, and coming back was the hardest thing I've ever done. And this is just one moment to make it all worth it, really.
You have also seen the gap on the line, 8 seconds plus the time bonus. Are you going to race for the overall win?
I mean, yeah, I see now. We also have Rafa and George for GC, and the last day they'll be really strong. So, I mean, I can try, but first I just want to soak this in and just kind of celebrate this. It's a big win for me.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, he fractured his femur at the end of May last year in Boucle de la Mayenne, and that is a pretty horrible crash, pretty horrible fracture to go in too. But he's back. He has got his first win. And just like you said, Brian, this was not the plan.
No, but they'll take it. They'll take it all day long. You could just see the reaction from Ulisse. He just had to let the wheel go. Bit of a frantic finish behind. But I was just about to say before the interview there, 8 seconds, but you've also got to add another 4 seconds to Albanese's time, so he'll be leading this race by 12 seconds when you factor in the bonuses, so 10, 6 and 4 on the line. But just looking at the faces a lot of these riders finished, that was a hard final kilometre there.
Beautiful shot here on the Temple of Concordia, actually the best conserved of the 12 temples that were here. And if you would have sailed in like the 5th century BC from Greece and see that ledge of temples here, it would have been rather magnificent to see. And like I said, the temples themselves, they were not accessible to people. People had to worship outside, and the temple itself was only accessible for priests and, of course, the gods. They had 12 temples, 12 gods, so a lot for everybody to enjoy. Got all your bases covered, God-wise, in ancient times. And it's a World Heritage Site, and of course many people have been there. Tomorrow, Brian, we go to Vittoria. But first, the highlights of today. Stage 1, stage started in Marsala, 159 kilometers. We had 2 King of the Mountain sprint, 1 at 102 kilometers from the finish line, and of course our finish climb. We had some first attacks there, but the first attack didn't stick. We ended up with a breakaway of 7 with Belleri, Schönberger, Galli, Milesi, Poli, Montefiore and Roland Thalmann. Of that breakaway, that never really got a bigger gap than 2.5 minutes. 3 riders remained. There were some crashes. Riders had to abandon, including Rudy Porter of the Jayco Alula team. But our breakaway then was down to 3 riders, with Michael Belleri, who took maximum points on the King of the Mountains, but, well, almost crashed here, going for that sprint in Montalegro. Those points went to Thalmann. We had a really nasty crash there, and some more crashes as we make our way to Agrigento. Today is not the day for Cavendish, but there was a smile. Who knows what might happen tomorrow? 3rd in Scheldeprijs, maybe 1st tomorrow. He feels good. But this was the man of the day, Finn Fisher-Black. He was, well, working in that sprint train for Ulisse. Ulisse couldn't follow the wheel, and he just continued. He just rode a rather spectacular climb. A fantastic final kilometre. Really interested to see what the power output there of Finn Fisher-Black would be in that final kilometre. But he looks incredulous. He looks very happy, and that makes me happy as well. His first professional win, Finn Fisher-Black, the leader in the points classification, the general classification, the mountain classification, and since he's only 21, also the young rider classification. So quite an extended trip to the podium there for Finn Fisher-Black. Good to have him back after that rather horrendous crash on the 29th of May last year in Boucle de la Mayenne. Yeah, tomorrow we go to Vittoria. Nothing to do with the tyres as far as I know, but 193 kilometres. We have 1 GPN that comes in the first hour of racing, and a sprint at 133 kilometres from the line. But the line, well, the run-up towards the finish line in Vittoria looks absolutely fantastic for the sprinters we have here, with the likes of Elia Viviani and, of course, also Mark Cavendish. We have Astoria, of course, and the local dignitaries already sheltering there, the man in the suit. But he's savouring the moment, and of course he should. His first professional win today on the 11th of April. High five with the mayor of Agrigento.
Ad Agrigento, la prima tappa del Giro di Sicilia Credit Agricole.
Well, that was a fast one. The fastest schedule said that we would have a finish 3:15, but we finished the race before 3 even, with 47 kilometers an hour average due to that pretty significant tailwind that we had today. He gets 4 jerseys on the podium. He gets to wear only one tomorrow, as Brian Smith and myself, José Bain, will be back from the Giro di Sicilia. Of course, tomorrow there's also Brabant-Sapel on the menu, with Carlton and Daniel on commentary. And that is also a very exciting race, the first of the, well, more hilly classics there in Vlaams Brabant. And don't forget, we also get the women's race with Danny, Christmas and Marty. So women's and men's Brabant-Sapel to enjoy tomorrow. And Brian and myself back same time, 10 minutes to 2 Central European time, for stage 2 of the Tour of Sicily.
Agrigento e veste la prima maglia di leader al Giro di Sicilia. Crédit Agricole si festeggia ancora sul podio di Agrigento.
The red jersey, red with a little bit of yellow, and of course that is, those are also the colours of the flag of the Regione Siciliana. I'll tell you a little bit more about the flag tomorrow, because as you can see, it's rather remarkable there, with Medusa, with the 4 legs, with the weed ears as well, and there's a story behind the flag of the region. And this is the overall standings, 10 bonus seconds on the line for Finn Fisher-Black, 6 for Albanese, 4 for Ulissi, and the rest of them all at 18 seconds. That is a nice margin that Fisher-Black has. Of course, he said in the interview that, well, he doesn't really expect to win this race, especially not with Mount Etna Due Monti on Friday. But I do think he'll keep the jersey for another day, at least. The leader's jersey, that is, because, well, he gets all the jerseys, Brian. All of them.
Now, if you're going to win your first pro race, do it in style. Let's go big. Right? Win the first stage of a race like this and take absolutely everything.
You got all the spoils, all the jerseys. Of course, you can wear only one. But yeah, it's quite a long stint there on the podium for him. More jerseys here with the Maglia Ciclamino, the points jersey. That one will be worn by Albanese tomorrow as a runner-up in that classification. And the good news for Belleri, Brian, is that he's the runner-up in the King of the Mountains classification. He gets to wear the jersey tomorrow, so that's nice for him, that he worked so hard for. There he is in 10th place, picking up those points at the intermediate sprint that was won by Roland Thalmann, and the rest of the riders, of course, in today's top 10.
Crédit Agricole e Finn Fisher-Black, white in Emirates.
Next one. This is what should we call it? A pistachio shade jersey? Do you have any colour associations with this rather weird colour?
I think we'll go with your recommendation, pistachio.
Which is one of my favourite ice creams. They do them really, really well in Italy. Pistachio ice cream.
Ringraziamo Francesco Micci, che è sindaco di
Agrigento. That means that we have one more jersey for him left, and that is the best young rider jersey. This is the King of the Mountains classification coming up. There we are with Finn Fisher-Black, Belleri, Albanese, Schoenberger, Ulissi, Thalmann, Caruso, and Umberto Boli from the breakaway today. Meaning that Belleri gets to wear that pistachio-coloured jersey tomorrow, as we have another 5 points on offer, and they come quite early in the stage after about 55 kilometers. So yeah, that might be worth a little bit of effort to go into the breakaway, although you can actually not win that King of the Mountains classification because there's 60 points on Friday. A little bit of uneven spread of points, to be quite honest, when it comes to that classification. But this is quite clearly a white jersey, so that must be for the best young rider. And I think that will be worn then by Thomas Vicenti, the rider of Beltrami Recolli, who finished in 7th place today. But we'll see the classification on our screens coming up for the best young rider. There we have it. Finn Fisher Black, of course, leads it, but Thomas Vicenti is in 2nd place. Mark Donovan there as well. Maybe he can move up in that jersey, in that classification for the white jersey.
Giro di Sicilia, Crédit Agricole, per i saluti finali a